Welcome back to another episode of Corralling the Chaos. Today, we are going to talk about all things sales and proposals. And with us today to help us do that is Karl Becker. Many of you may know him. He has been a previous guest of Corralling the Chaos, and it was such a great conversation before we asked him to come back. But for those of you that don't know Karl already, Karl is a sales performance consultant, coach, author, which we're going to talk about, and speaker. He's spent over a decade consulting with event production companies as well as with companies outside of our industry, helping them maximize their revenues while honing in on their sales process. So welcome, Karl. Thanks for joining us.
You are very welcome. Thank you for having me. I love all the conversations we've had on camera, off camera about sales and business in this industry. So really grateful to be here and being able to play around again and talk some.
Yeah, well, great. Well, I want to start with your book, Iceberg Selling. And tell the audience what that means. What
Yeah.
exactly is iceberg selling?
All right. So I'm an entrepreneur. I'm a salesperson. I like things that are simple. And I've always been like reading business books and listening to things in my past. And sometimes it gets way heady. And I'll tell you some of my other books, they're a little heady. I will admit that. So I was like, okay, we're going to write this book. What's the purpose? And I'm like, the purpose is to kind of give one message that if people just grabbed onto that, it could change their lives. And I realized that's a big promise, but it's true. So I started to think about like, what would that look like? And what do really good communicators, what do really good leaders, what do really good salespeople have in common? They know how to communicate. They know how to listen. They know how to understand, or said another way, they know how to get underneath the iceberg. Like if you ever saw the movie Titanic, or you know what icebergs are, 10% are above the surface. That's all you get to see. And I think everyone running around, me, you, your kids, everyone you meet, they're only showing you 10% at any one time. Yet we run into these conversations giving advice, trying to solve problems with only 10% of the picture. So the whole concept here is, how do we get better at understanding what's below the surface? How do we see more and more and more so that we can be in service more effectively? We can sell more effectively. We can communicate more effectively. We can have better relationships with people because we truly understand what's going on, and we can meet them there and bring really great solutions. So if you walk away with one thing, think about everything as an iceberg and start to kind of figure out how you might be able to learn more and more and more before you open your mouth and start to give ideas or kind of get into action.
Yeah, it's so funny. I always look at it this way. I always think about, and we hire salespeople too. And one of the biggest things, qualities I look for is, are they a curious person by nature? Like they can't help but ask the question. They need to know the answer, right? That don't take things at face value. To your point, right? It's not just the ice sticking up. It's everything that's underneath that. And I think curious people kind of look under there and try to figure out what's going on. So I think I love the title. I just wanted to. I did look at your book also on Amazon, Karl, and
Yes.
I have a couple reviews. I'm not sure if you've checked them, but for those of you who have not checked out his book, these are a couple of the comments made about it. It's packed with wisdom. It's a way to get sales results without the baggage. I personally love that. I've yet to meet a salesperson who wouldn't be interested in that. Great perspective on how to sell more authentically. Love that. I think sales is all about being authentic. If you're not, you should choose a different career. And another one is a must read for sales professionals. So congratulations. I mean, I've certainly known you through the years, and I've watched you in action, and I think you have um, just a great mindset and skill set for live events, because I think that our industry, we've talked about this before. I think our industry does a really good job of helping their clients tell their client story, but they don't always do a good job telling their own story. And so that's really where I want to spend our time today, is to help our audience. How do they tell a better story for themselves? So just kind of curious, in all of your engagements and your consulting with these live event companies, what do you kind of see as the biggest challenges that they have?
Yeah. Wow. You said a lot, and and all of those I think are worth exploring. What showed up for me first was a story that I tell in the book, and there's two mindsets in the book that I want to bring forward right now. The first one is lifetime value, and you might be going, "Wait, we were just talking about proposals," but just stick with me. I promise you, it's going to be relevant. Lifetime value and being of service, or a service-based mindset. And I want you to use your imagination. I was in a live event company There's about 5 people, all sales account people, and I'm running the sales meeting. Okay. This is a true story. I'm sitting there. And a big part of how we run meetings is kind of a check-in and then maybe a lesson learned. Sometimes we have each salesperson actually present an event that they did in a PowerPoint or some sort of presentation template as a way of kind of like educating the whole team. So I just want you to imagine you're in this room and somebody goes, hey, I want to talk to you about this event I did. And they walk through some slides and you're asking some questions. What was the challenge? How did we solve it? What was the lesson learned? But that's not the secret yet. That's just kind of like table stakes. We want all of our team that are communicating on behalf of our brand to know what we do and how we think and how we solve problems. Because guess what? That's what people are really buying. They're not
Yeah.
buying the gear and the people. They're buying the knowledge you have.
Yeah.
So
The ability to execute, to your
exactly.
point, the how. Yeah, that's right. And the
So
why. And
if you're selling knowledge, then don't you want your whole team to be able to tell those stories? And so this is a way to practice and also learn. Well, after that, we go through and we start talking about what stuck. And this one guy, Ethan, goes, oh, I met this meeting planner at an MPI event, hit it off. We could do tons of business together. We really hit it off. It could be a great relationship. She sent me an RFP and now I'm getting ghosted. Okay. So we go around the room because it's kind of a peer group. And I asked all the other salespeople, what would you do? And we got the traditional stuff. Well, have you checked in? Have you sent a text? Have you called? Have you this? It's forcing the issue of, are you wanting to buy?
mm-hmm.
And that was the mistake, I think, because we got so focused on the deal, the RFP, that we forgot that this is a meeting planner where we could do a ton of business. So I asked Ethan, I said, hey, before we move forward, I want you to answer this question for me. Are you playing to win this RFP, or are you playing for all the business this meeting planner could give you over the next 5 or 10 or 20 years? It didn't take him long to answer that question. I'm playing for all the business. I said, so let's start changing the narrative versus we've got to close this thing to how do I show up with value? How do I like win the heart and mind of this meeting planner and the people at our company? And that gets to the second mindset of being of service. So I said, how could you be of service? And I think a lot of us in sales think, oh, well, we're ready to go. We call them, do you have any questions? Are you ready to go? Do you want to sign this? That's needy. Nobody wants a needy salesperson. You know, I think about when we do that is when I was in high school as a young guy and my first real relationship and she broke my heart. I was like, what else do you need me to do? I'll do whatever, right? And it was like that needy 16-year-old
Yes.
Karl Becker was not attractive. Like that's not
Yeah.
what we want to do. So kind of taking that and thinking about how are we of service, I simply said, let's brainstorm some ideas. What does the meeting planner need? What is her life like? Ideas. Maybe we take her to one of our favorite venues. Maybe we have a gala we're doing for one of our other clients and we ask her if she wants to come and see how we work and we take her backstage, or we just see she witnesses how our team interacts with other planners, right? We're giving her ideas, we're giving her value that's outside of the here's a gear list, here's the price, and oh, by the way, here's a discount if you need it, right? So
Yeah.
I think
And then I'm just going to call and I hate that. I'm going to check in. I'm just calling to
yeah.
check in. I always tell her people don't ever send an
Oh,
email. I'm just checking in. Like add value, do the work before you're hired.
exactly. And if you like what we're talking about, the book Iceberg Selling talks about 4 mindsets. It talks about 5 best practices. If you follow those things, it's not a guarantee, but most of the time, you're not going to get ghosted. Most of the time, the customer is going to tell you they're ready to go forward. Most of the time, you're not going to feel like you have to do that check-in. I'm this desperate teenage boy in high school hoping that I can win back the girl that just broke my heart.
Yeah.
You can move on and you can create value. And so even though we're not talking yet about proposals and how we actually show up, I think a lot of what I see when I work with other companies is like just reframing a mindset. We're so good at solving problems, but we show up with gear lists and prices instead of the answer to the problem. And so I guess I would just encourage everyone listening, you know, how can you be in your day-to-day differently is a good starting place.
So it's such a great point because I do think our industry, I mean, they have gotten better over the last few years, I do think. But, you know, historically, you know, when I would ask about a proposal, in my mind, a proposal it means one thing. To them, they would respond with the quote, right? Which is, to your point, a list of gear. And that is a commodity based sale, right? Everybody could get their hands on the same gear, you know, like that. That's turning it into a commodity. So tell me, just curious, how do you differentiate? How, in your own words, how do you define the difference between a quote versus a proposal?
Yeah. I think what I would say first is in this industry, I think a quote is a gear list. People are you told me you need XYZ, here's XYZ, and maybe it's kind of XYZ and maybe A, we added something, and here's the price, and
And the discount.
yeah, and the discount, and it's up to you to interpret that. And I realize we're
Mhm.
talking in generalities around a lot of different buyers, and you might have a buyer like if you're selling, if you're coming to town and you're a live event company and you want gear from another one that's your buddy, okay, fine, right? Because that's who you're selling to. But if we're
Yeah.
selling a solution, then what the hell are we doing giving people that don't know what to do with this gear that as the solution to the answer, right? We've got to guide people to understand that we do create outcomes, that there is something that they're buying when they work with us that is, I can do this with confidence. It's going to work. Things aren't going to fall off. I don't know if I want to use the word flawless, but like people are hiring you for your expertise and your team's expertise and how you see and think and be in the world. And a list of gear does not communicate that. So,
Yeah.
in this space, I think quote is typically analogous with a shopping list, a gear list, and a price. Where I would hope that, at least with my clients, when we talk proposal, we're talking about not only the thing that we send, but how we talk and how we position our solution along the way. So it's not just like this piece of paper or this digital piece of paper with some pictures on it has to do all the heavy lifting. It's just reinforcing what we've already told people and what they
Yeah.
already expect and what they already believe we can do. So that's how I kind of see it. One's like a list of gear. The other's like helping someone like really see who you are and how you solve and how you think and how you want to help them in some amount of detail.
Yeah. The narrative. Yeah. I love that.
The
I love
narrative,
that.
yeah, that's a great word.
So when you think about, because I'm sure in your role you see all different types of narratives, proposals, stories, all these, different companies, how they position themselves. But in your mind, what do you think are the key components to telling a good story through a proposal?
Right. Well, the first is it's a story, right? It's a narrative, it's a story, it's a way of somebody understanding who you are. And I think the proposal, like I said a minute ago, shouldn't do the heavy lifting. It should reinforce. So, for example, I'll give you kind of two entry points. Hopefully, I've talked to this client. I've asked Iceberg questions. I really want to understand what success looks like for them. What does it look like for their audience? Why are they coming to the city? What did they like last year? What did they not like last year? Like, I want to understand all the things that got them to where they are today and understand what they really want this outcome to look like. And if they're not willing to do that, then I'm going to work really hard to find a way to get them to communicate with me more. And that's a whole nother podcast. But
Mm-hmm.
but the point is, in this world, in this example, I want to be able to kind of give them their expectations. I want to tell them what's happening next. No one likes a surprise. And then when you sell, I don't want a surprise either. I don't want to have to call you and be like, hey, just checking in. I want to be able to create like a trajectory. I almost think of selling like a show flow. Like
Yeah.
like the event is the proposal. And if we
Yeah.
can start to think about that way, what are all the things you have to do to make sure that event goes well?
Yeah.
And it's the same thing. It's about being prepared and understanding and bringing a solution forward. So if I have a conversation, I'm going to certainly paint the picture of, hey, now that I understand what you said, I'm going to repeat it back to you. Does that sound about right? Are you open to some ideas? Great. Okay, I'm going to create a proposal for you. It's going to be digital. I'm going to send it to you. You're going to be able to share it. And it's going to have kind of like an understanding of what you told me, some ideas for you, and then maybe what I might put in the appendix is like some eye candy, some inspiration, and then I'll put some information about my company too, in case you're going to share this. Maybe you're selling to a committee or a nonprofit, and there's 5 or 6 people. But what I'm not going to do is bury the lead, right? Nobody wants to go through 20 or 50 or 100 pages. So this proposal needs to be simple, and I'm going to tell them that I'm going to be like, look, right away, first couple pages, you're going to know that I understand you and what this kind of looks like. And if you
Yeah.
want to understand the thinking and the derivative pieces in the appendix, it's going to be in the back to support it. But does that sound right? I'm going to keep testing for success. So hopefully when that person says yes, the proposal matches that. And I might do it in an email too. Hey, this is what I'm going to provide you. Is that cool? Is there anything else that you want? But I'm trying to get agreement before I go squirrel away in my office and bring in all these other people and spend, potentially even 50 or 100 hours figuring this out. If it's a monster, I want to make sure I'm showing up right and they know it. So for me, that's like the pre-work. And then to answer kind of the what's in the proposal, the first thing is it needs to tell the story. It needs to show understanding. It needs to have visuals and make it easy. Think usability, super usability. Think of your most favorite app or the favorite platform you might use for anything. Are you clicking a million times to get the answer, or is it a slide and a click and you're there? So there's a streamlinedness and a usability piece as well to this, I think.
Yeah, I just want to repeat that. I do think there is something for it being concise, being able to tell a concise, short story. I see a lot of salespeople try to use collateral as a clutch. Let's just throw everything at them, and hopefully one of these images will resonate. Like, if not that one, this one will give them, more than enough to kind of comb through, which defeats the purpose. And I think, you just talked about, you referenced an iceberg selling question. And I think you have to earn the right to get to a proposal, right? You need to have, if you don't understand the mindset of the person you're selling to and what they're trying to accomplish and how you and your company can play a part in helping them achieve that outcome, if you can't articulate that, you're not ready to do a proposal. You're not ready to ask for the business. And so when you think about some of those discovery questions that feed into the proposal, those iceberg selling questions, what are some of the questions that you think a lot of people miss in asking that can be so monumental when it comes to proposing a solution?
Yeah. I'm going to tell you something that I think is going to resonate with the listeners, and then I'm going to answer that question. And what I want to call out, which I think is probably one of the big elephants in the room for anyone selling, especially an owner. And the reason I said that is you didn't get in this job to be a salesperson. You got in this job because you like making events. You like to make dreams happen. And oh, by the way, now if I'm going to feed my family and grow my company, I better learn how to sell. So I think all of us, whether we are the most seasoned salesperson in the world or the new person starting out or that owner, we all have head trash around what sales means. And I think there's this trigger in our brain that says, if I ask too personal of a question, if I come across too pushy or confident or whatever it is in your mind right now, then they're not going to like me. And if they don't like me, they will never buy from me. So I need to say yes all the time. And even if the answer is no, or I'm really curious, I don't want to ask it because now maybe I'm wasting their time or whatever is in your head, your story. And so the first thing I would tell you is reframe who you are when you're on these calls. All of you listening are experts. You've done this. You get it. You've done a gazillion events. You've done more events than the person you're talking to. But we act like we have to be like they're the lead dog and we have to follow them. And how is that of service? Like, do you go to your doctor and tell them what you need prescribed? No. You show up and that doctor, if they're good, they ask you questions and they get curious and probably some uncomfortable questions, but you're glad they are because you want that thing to go away. You want to get healthier. It's not terribly different here. So I guess I'd first rephrase it or reframe it to how can you show up as a guide and a domain expert that's there to support this person to make the best decision possible? And if you live in that space and the person starts to give you that information, now that domain expert, that owner that's done a gazillion events, that knows everything, can actually show up and share. And once you share and it aligns, that person's most likely going to say, what's next? How do I move forward with you? Because you got them and they know that you get them. So in that framework, I like to do something where I might even frame up the call. So I would say, Angela, thank you for spending some time. I'd really like to learn about your event, but I'm going to ask you some questions. Like, I'm really curious. Like, why are you coming to Chicago? What is Association ABC about? I spent time on your website. It seems amazing how you're trying to change the world, but what are most of your attendees like? Who do you usually work with? Why are you coming here? What does success look like for you? Do you have teammates that have had tough times before? I'm asking these questions because the more I know, the more I can help you. So I'm already trying to prime it so that that person knows I'm showing up differently than all the competitors who are just going to say, so what did you do last year? Do you have the proposal? Do you have a gear list? What do you need? Right? I'm going to show them that I'm curious and that I care and I'm going to be authentic. So some of those questions might be, and I already put them out there, but the fun, silly one, if you have the confidence to do this after you start to talk to someone and you just say, hey, Angela, this is going to sound silly, and I realize that, but paint for me if you had a magic wand. What is your ideal experience working with a company like mine? Like if you could wave the wand and I was the ideal live event production company, AV company, whatever we want to call it, what would that look like? And then be quiet and listen. And most likely Angela is going to play along and you're going to tell me. And then I'm going to repeat it back. So it's not crazy. It's not magic, even though I said magic wand. So maybe it is a little magic. That's what I would say.
Yeah, I love that. And I love the it's not a challenge, right? One of my favorite books is The Challenger Sale. It's really, and you use the example with a doctor, right? Like if I go to a doctor and he or she is not asking me a bunch of questions, I'm thinking they don't really care. They're just trying to cut to the chase. They're cutting corners versus those that are like, well, why do you feel that way?
Mhm.
Why did you say that? Like, tell me more. They're
Exactly.
spending time. I know that they're not just running through a script. They're not just doing the normal A, B, and C. They're focused on me. And so I think asking people, and it's always fun when you ask somebody, well, tell me why you chose to do that. To your point, why Chicago? What? And sometimes they're like, you know what? I don't know. Maybe it doesn't have to be Chicago, right?
Mhm.
And so I think uncovering those questions and doing it in a way that makes them feel heard, important, um, that not every proposal you do looks the same. You're not always proposing the same solution, right? You're going to literally match what they're trying to do, maybe challenge it a little, right? Like to me that's a successful thing if you get them to think about something differently. And that's how you stand out against the competition. If you leave them thinking an hour after your call or meeting, that was a good point. Why don't I do that? Why am I doing that? Or maybe I should consider this, right? Challenge their thinking in the right way when it makes sense. And I think you're right. It does take courage. It does seem a little scary, but I think to me, that's where the magic happens in sales engagements is when you can get them to think about things differently.
Absolutely. And I go back to that story about Ethan. Are you playing for this one event or are you playing for all their events?
Yeah.
And so I would even say, you might get in a call with somebody and realize that their budget doesn't match what they really need and you're not the low cost provider in your market. But if you still made a great impression, you asked them great questions. They're like, this was a great call. You know what? I know you're 20 grand more than we have. Um, I wish I could work with you. There's no way I can find it, but guess what? We're going to be in Phoenix, in 6 months. Could we talk about that? Because I haven't set the budget there yet, right? And isn't that the client you want? The one that wants to work with you,
Hmm.
that versus the one that you kind of like gave them such a great deal that they can't not work with you, because then how are you gonna like change that story? How are you gonna change how they see you going forward if the reason they went with you is just price? Again, I'm trying to think lifetime value. How am I of service? How do I build strong relationships? Because the one of the best parts about this industry is it's evergreen. Like
Yeah.
you buy again and again and again, and then they move, right? And they go to another place and they take you. It's like these are lifetime value relationships. And if we can start to see that this is the step one of a potentially great relationship and show up that way, you're going to get advantage. You're going to win more than you're going to lose, and lifetime value is going to be amazing.
Yeah. Absolutely. How important do you think speed is? Right? Because I see
Mhm.
a lot of companies, it's like, okay, we've got this RFP. We've got to have 20 meetings internally to figure out the creative and this and that. And then we're waiting on this person because they're the only person that can actually quote the prices. It's the only person that actually can, do some renderings. And so, how important is speed, especially if it's an RFP and, it's going to six different companies? Like,
Yeah.
where do you want to fall? Do you want to be the first? Do you want to be the last? And like,
Yeah.
why?
I think the first thing is, there's a long time age old phrase: "Time kills all deals." And I really believe that. I think speed is essential, but speed doesn't necessarily mean you have to get the final proposal the fastest. It means you need to show up quickly, efficiently, hopefully the fastest.
Yeah.
So here's the thing: you get a lead at 4:45. If you're a salesperson and you go, "Oh, I've got to leave at, I'll get them tomorrow." No, I want you at 4:46 to have sent them an email back that says, this was great. I appreciate you thinking about us. I've got 10 minutes before I leave to pick up my kids, but I'm going to review this tonight and I'll be in touch with you by tomorrow morning.
Yep. And
That's
then be in touch tomorrow morning. If you say
yes,
you're going
and
to do
then
it,
do
do
what
it.
you said, because that's the
Yes.
other part of sales. Like it's about all these like little micro events that create trust
Yes.
and communication. So every time, I want you to think about this. Do not just say, hey, thank you. I'll be in touch in 2 weeks when it's due. Try to immediately create micro conversations, micro back and forth. Think of a ping pong table, if you will. I'm going back and forth. And the game is how many times can I go back and forth? Because every time is a chance to create trust and to find out more and to prove that you're really the right partner. I almost said vendor, the right partner for this person. So I think speed is critical, but it doesn't mean you have to necessarily be the first person with the full answer. I want you to be the first person that's most memorable.
Yeah.
Is when you're
Yeah.
memorable, you have the grace of time because they
Yeah.
want to work with you versus, oh, I guess we would probably get a couple more RFP responses. No, we're going to get the one from Carl. Awesome. And he said he'll get it in 10 days. Great. I can't wait to
Yeah.
see it. That's what I
Yeah.
want.
Yeah, it's almost it's not, I mean, speed is it, but I also think about reliability comes to mind too, right? If they say they're going to do something, they do it. They're reliable, they're responsive. If they're not going to do that during the sales process, they're certainly not going to do it when the stakes are high and we've got a live event, right? So I think it's an indicator of what the relationship is beyond the signed agreement.
Wow. Yeah. I would say if you are in any sales role, and I'm even going to just say you are the face of the company, you are the brand. You are the physical representation of that brand. So if you think about your own event, who would you want to work with? Someone that understands, visual and content and attention to detail. And, if I go to their website, it's not broken. The blog isn't 2 years old. Like if you have 2-year-old blogs, kill that page. Like you're
Yeah.
only communicating, I'm too busy or I'm too lazy or it's not important anymore. And
Yeah.
I don't want anybody like that on my event. So I do think all of this kind of ties to as the front line, as the face, we're creating an experience for that buyer. How we show up, what we write, the proposal, how we send that proposal, how it looks, how it feels, what's that experience? It's all together. People are going to judge you on that. And that's going to, a lot of times, tilt the scale in your favor, which is what we really want.
Yeah, I just read this stat a few weeks ago that I shared with our team. It said 68% or buyers cited that or 68% of those surveyed cited the reason why they chose to go with the company they did was because of the salesperson. That's how much your salesperson influences your success. And again, it's not the person. I mean, it is. It's how responsible are they? How reliable? How consultative are they? How are they serving throughout the process? But it just, so many people think it's all about the piece of gear, the product, that it is all about the engagement and what you as a human being, and when you show up with what is unique to you and how you speak and how you interact and how you serve, that is what they're buying. And so I just can't stress that enough. I think it's such an interesting stat. 68% of the deals are won because of the person, and that's meaningful.
It is. I'll tell you a really quick story that kind of backs that up. My son had an interview for college, and he was going to meet this alumni at a coffee shop. And I said, okay, great. And okay, he's had a sales consultant dad his entire life. So I said, what are you thinking? He's like, well, I'm going to wash my car and I'm going to make sure my car's clean because if I get out of the car and that alumni's there and looks in my car and it's all dirty and stuff, ooh, I don't want that. I was like, great. Then what? He goes, well, I'm going to go the day before and make sure I know where I'm going to park and I know where I'm going to sit and I know what's on the menu so that I'm not distracted. Great. What else? And he kind of went through this list. But
Love that.
if you think about it, it's chance favors the prepared. And when we're in sales or running a company or anything where our activities have a huge like leverage effect, we want to decrease risk all the time. It's no
Yeah.
different, right? Than producing an event. I get back to we're creating experiences, and then how can I increase my success potential? How can I increase confidence? So I want you to think about that. If you are the face of the company, how do you show up? As much as if it was an in-person meeting, like, do you have bad breath? And you're like, I don't know if I do. Well, then start asking some people, right? And if you have sloppy clothes, or you're going to wear your branded polo, but is it faded? Like, again, it doesn't. I'm not trying to say you have to look like a gazillionaire and all flashy. That's
Yeah.
that's kind of the bullshit of sales. You
Yeah.
just need to be tight and engaged, and let that person realize they're super important to you, and that you also value the same things that they value, like no
Yeah.
mistakes, being on
Yep.
top of your game, attention to detail, how you look, how you present, how you show up in the world. Those are the things. And granted, we haven't said gear once here. So, like,
Yep.
to your point, a big advantage here is how you show up, how you interact. What does that relationship look like?
Love it. I love it. Well, I could talk all day to you, Carl. I love talking sales,
Thank you.
and I always love having you on the show and just kind of being out and about with you. I know last time I saw you, we were at Tom Stimpson's Jumpstart. What's really interesting about Jumpstart in this conversation we're having today is Tom is doing another Jumpstart in Atlanta, April 3rd and 4th.
Nice.
And it's all about this topic we're talking about today. It's all about the selling sphere, how live event companies can market themselves better, sell better, win more at better profit margins, of course, but it's all about this selling sphere. So, for those of you interested in that, be sure you check that out. That's Tom Stimpson's Jumpstart. We'll have a link on our website as well to it. But it's April 3rd and 4th in Atlanta. I think he's doing additional ones in Denver, I think in August, and then again in Dallas in December. But Tom always throws a great event. So be sure to check that
Yeah, that
out.
sounds great.
Also, be sure to pick up Carl's book, Iceberg Selling. It is on Amazon. Lots of great reviews. And so thank you for being here. I really appreciate it. There were a number of takeaways that I had from our conversation. I think about digging deep, to your point of the iceberg selling, right? Look underneath, be curious, dig deep, ask the challenging questions that are going to make people think. Be authentic, show up, care, really care about the outcome, and realize you said it's all these micro events, right? You're telling a story through every engagement you have, and so be credible, be trustworthy, uh, be the person that they should trust their $1 million event with. Be that person and show up in every single engagement. So these are all great reminders for our audience. I do have one final question for you, Carl, that we like to ask every guest. What do you hope for our industry?
Yeah. The thing that was like, boom, what showed up is confidence. Confidence. I have met so many creative, smart, driven, hard work. I don't think you can meet many people that are more hardworking than people in the live event industry, period. Full
So
stop.
true. Yep.
And so I think I would want anyone listening to realize that the value they have, that your experiences, all the things you've done, um, a tremendous amount of confidence you have, or I would hope you would bring forward to your conversations, and to realize that confidence does not equal pushy. And if you're selling, confidence does not equal salesy. Confidence means I trust this person. They've been through the shit. I'm sorry, but
Yeah.
and they can do it. And so I want to buy that person's experience, right? I want to buy the person that's confident, that knows that has been down this road, has been on this rodeo a gazillion times. And I think oftentimes we're shy. We don't want to bring it forward because we're afraid of whatever that head trash is. That means I'm, going to brag, or people are going to think that I'm all
Yeah.
full of myself, or might have a really big ego. But gosh, confidence, you change the world. People's events change the world, and they need you to do it. So I think what I would just like to see is more confidence of bringing forward your story and your value, because it's there. It's amazing.
That's so true. That's such a great answer. I don't think anybody's ever said that answered it that way, but you're right. And maybe, you know, it's fewer discounts. It's believing in the value that you're providing, being
Yeah,
confident in your bill rate because you're worth every
you
penny of that,
are worth it,
you
no
know?
question.
Yeah, I love that. Well, thank you. Thank you so
Thank
much for
you.
being here. I appreciate it. For those of you that enjoy the Corralling the Chaos podcast, be sure to hit subscribe. If you have any questions, comments, or feedback, please reach out to us at podcast@lasso.io. Thanks so much, Carl.
Thank you.